Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Meditation and Spiritual Practice. It's great to see everybody. Some of us had a very deep and moving weekend and are just kind of coming off on that. And so, hopefully, those of you who weren't able to attend this particular weekend can feel a little of that energy through the meditation this morning. So we're coming to the end in our Torah cycle of the book of Genesis, and we're kind of wrapping up the drama and story of Joseph and his brothers with Parshat Vayechi. And this is a section in our Torah that is so much about teshuvah, return and repentance. It's about healing. It's about repair. Um, as Joseph really deeply reconciles with his brothers. And um, some of what we spoke about this weekend was um, how presence and consciousness and awareness can actually be a part of healing multi-generational trauma, meaning that all of the ways in which we have difficulty opening up to the living, divine, godly presence that is within us and surrounding with us everywhere is connected into ways that in our own growing up, that presence wasn't reflected back to us in significant people. And, the word, it's very interesting, the word trauma usually conjures up a very strong experience of violence or something like that. But one great psychologist, thinker, Gabor Mate, really looks at trauma as being, defined as kind of those ways in which we had to compromise our authenticity in order to stay attached and connected to the people that we loved. That human beings both have the needs, the very deep and core needs for authenticity, to be who we are and to have that be real and organic, but also to be attached, to be connected, and especially with parents or significant people in our lives, a lot of times we learn that in order to keep those attachments um, alive and present, we had to compromise parts of ourselves, and those traumas really become very much a deep part of our own psyche that are part of our spiritual journey of healing. So what happens here in we have a scene where Jacob is coming at the end of his life, and he is giving blessings to his children. And what's interesting is out of all of his children, he does not give a blessing to Joseph, but instead he brings Joseph's sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, to bless them instead. And Joseph is good with this. For Joseph, it's, the blessing it would be like it would be coming through him. It's coming to his children. And for sure, he, as being second in command to Pharaoh, and is just flowing with abundance of blessing. So Jacob brings them close, and what he does is he puts his right hand on um, the younger one, which is Ephraim, and his left hand on the older Manasseh, and he gives them the blessing. And what that does per se is he's giving the younger one, Ephraim, the primary blessing, the one that comes with the right hand, and Manasseh, a secondary blessing. And right here, and this particular blessing that he gives, um, you know, is one that Jewish parents all throughout, history from rabbinic time is what they use to bless their children. They say, Yesimcha Elohim ke Ephraim v'ke Menashe. May you be like Ephraim and Menashe. And then give the priestly blessing. But what's interesting here is as Jacob crosses his arms, really favoring the younger one over the older one, who's the older one is the one that usually is supposed to get the blessing. Joseph tries to move Jacob's hands, you know, the right way, to do it the right way, and Jacob resists it. And we see here the echoes of these past um, experiences, maybe traumas. We know for Jacob and Esau, Jacob with his mother tricked Esau, who was the firstborn and the oldest one, out of the blessing, right? So Jacob was the one who who took who took the blessing instead of his older brother. Even before that, Isaac and Ishmael. Ishmael was the older son of Abraham, and yet it was Isaac that got the blessing, the younger one. Again, completely against convention. And so there's something that's coming through here where these blessings are being given in ways that are in some ways are recognizing that maybe the way forward is not through convention, is not through the way that it's always done, and that sometimes maybe the one who's not the expected one to lead and go forward is the one that really needs to have the primary position of leadership. And I think we can all look at that and see that has truth to it and can be there. At the same time, this is also involving real human beings who are, um, who are have feelings and experiences and all of that, and are needing to and can feel hurt. And we kind of know in the sense of even with Joseph and his brothers, Joseph was was the second to the youngest, and it was Jacob that favored Joseph. Again, repeating this pattern. But what does Joseph end up doing? When his brother, he sees this, he tries to change it. Jacob doesn't want to change it. So then he goes ahead and he tries to make the tikkun, the fixing with his own brothers. And what he does is he says, they come to him and they're afraid because they treated him horribly. They tried to kill him, and he's now the one who's in power. And they come and they beg for his mercy. And his response to them is not only do they not need to get his mercy, he says everything happened exactly how it needed to happen. And not only that, but the blessing that our grandfather, great grandfather Abraham, gave for all of us to, and Yitzchak, and gave to all of us. This is our blessing to share. He gives it back to them. He gives it back, and he basically says the way forward is only if we are able to do it together. And that means that from here on out, you are all just as filled with blessing as I am, and we're going to go forward in partnership. So that's kind of piece number one. It's interesting that I went in that direction because there was a different Hasidic teaching that I was going to offer this morning, and and somehow this is what came out. So we're just going to kind of leave that there for us to go on. But I still do want to share with you this teaching from the Or HaMeir, Rabbi Zev Wolf of Zitomir, who was one of the students of the Maggid of Mezrich. And he comes in and looks at this scene where Jacob has all of his children gathered around his deathbed. Jacob calls to his sons and says, gather around, and I will tell you what will become at the end of days. The Acharit Yamim, the end of days. He's going to share with them this secret of where it's all going and where all of it. And what's interesting is at that moment, what Rashi says, because we don't hear him actually reveal anything in the Torah. He says, gather around, I want to do this. And then he doesn't reveal anything. And Rashi, the great French commentator, said, he sought to reveal the end to them, but then God's presence departed from him. So if you can imagine, he's very deeply in this experience of God. Past, present, and future have collapsed, and he's really seen deeply into it all, and he's about to share it, and God's presence departs from him. So the Or HaMa'ir has some things to share about this, and I'm gonna read to you from his words, from his teaching. It says, it's also taught, and this is from the Talmud, that in the future the righteous will be called by the Blessed Holy One's own name. The righteous restore the Torah to its original pristine state, Torah as it proceeded from divine wisdom. The tzaddik, by the power of deep understanding, strips the Torah of its narrative garb, dressing it instead in spiritual form, sublime lights, and secret holy names. And these names are hinted in the narrative itself. A truly perceptive person can read the entire Torah in God's name, Yud He Vav He, and find that blessed name within all the details of the Torah's stories. This is how the tzaddikim restore Torah to its original state before it was dressed up in this world. The Torah had to take on its corporal form for the sake of Israel, who themselves exist in bodily form. They would never have been able to attain the Torah's depths without that narrative garb, which makes it possible for us flesh and blood beings to listen to it. Okay, right? So the nature is what we know as Torah, as teaching, is really this profound experience of deep God consciousness. But many of us are not ready to really experience that deep God consciousness, mostly probably because it would completely shatter a lot of the ideas that we might have about ourselves in the world, the things that we hold on for protection, the things that we hold on, and so we may not be ready for that. And so the Torah is cloaked in these stories and in all of these other things so that we can come to it in our own time. It says, but in the future, when our bodies will be purified of all corporality, and the earth will be filled with knowledge of God from great to small, there will be a greater understanding in the world, and Torah will be stripped of that covering garb. It will exist only as sublime and holy sights seen by everyone. And I want to just understand this as not that in some future time we're not going to have bodies. That might be true. We can understand it that way if we want. I mean, who knows if part of what if some of us are tapped into the truth that who we are is not just our body, and therefore after death we live on in some way. And now I'm going to just put a little bracket in here because we have a very special lunch and learn on January 25th with Rabbi Eli Spitz, who will be talking about his book, Does the Soul Survive? So to hear more about that. But it's given that that goes on, it's possible that, if we go ahead and destroy the ability to have human life on this planet or destroy ourselves going forward in some future thing, maybe we will exist on without bodies in some other form. But I'm going to choose to interpret this as that in the future, human beings are going to not have an attachment and a strict identification with ourselves as only bodies. That in the future, people are going to be able to see the godly light in everyone and to see that the bodies are just the vessels and the vehicles. As in, the statement that some people might have heard say, instead of real thinking that we are a body that's having a spiritual experience, to say that we are a spiritual being who is having a body experience. Now we can understand what it means that Jacob wanted to reveal the end to his sons. Israel does not have the mind or awareness to fathom how to combine the letters as they were created, to set them forth in a fixed and permanent way. But if a universally wise sage were to come forth announcing the good, telling each one of Israel, this is what you need to do, each according to your own will and capacity, in order to reveal this light right now, who would not listen to such words? Everyone would want to bring about the future state of understanding. Redemption would no longer be delayed. The trouble is that this powerful teaching would in fact overwhelm the free will that was given to each and every Israelite. Each of us has to come upon those arrangement of creation's letters that we need to find, each at our own pace and with our own level of awareness and with intense devotion to God. Without this, our existence as part of creation has no meaning. What good is it then if a great sage comes along and tells us our own secret that we were supposed to discover of our own free will? Our will would be negated by such an act, and it would be of no value. And there's a little more that he goes on, but I'll just pause here to say that Jacob went to share this with his sons, and yet the Shekhinah, God's presence, departed from him because they were not ready to hear that truth yet. Each person needs to come to this truth, to this depth, in our own way, in our own time, in a way that's authentic for each of us. And so all of this really comes to um, really be a very deep teaching about patience with our own process and with our own self. That there's no place to get to. There is just a journey of ongoing growth and opening to this infinite divine presence, and that these experiences or knowledge that we may seek are things that we have to come through our own life and experience. Nobody can tell it to us. Okay, so let's get in a comfortable place that we can sit for a period of time without moving around too much. And we'll start with a melody and then go into the silence. Yai dai 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 dai. Yai dai 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 dai. Yai dai 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 dai. Yai dai dai dai. Yai dai 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 dai. Yai dai 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 dai. Yai dai 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 dai. Yai dai dai dai. Yai dai 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 dai. I nai 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 nai. I nai 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 nai. I nai nai nai. I nai 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 nai. I nai 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 nai. I nai 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 nai. Yai nai nai nai. Yai nai 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 nai. Yai nai 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 nai. Yai nai 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 nai. Yai nai 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 nai. Yai nai nai nai. Yai nai 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 nai. Yai nai 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 nai. Yai nai 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 nai. I nai nai nai. Yai nai 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 nai. Yai nai 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 nai. Yai nai 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 nai. Yai nai nai nai. So you can begin by bringing your attention to the movement of breath, noticing where it enters in the nostrils or the mouth, following its passage into us, noticing how the belly or the chest expands to make room for the inhale. Notice that moment where the inhale reaches its maximum length and switches over to an exhale, following the air out of the body until that exhale reaches its maximum length and then switches over to an inhale, paying attention to the cycle yet again. As you pay attention to the movement of breath, see if you can become aware of your whole body in space, how the whole body is affected by each inhale and exhale, how there's a gentle expansion with each inhale, and the breath, the energy and sensation can actually go all the way down to the tips of your toes and the tips of your fingers on each inhale and exhale. As you continue to stay present with each inhale and exhale and all of the accompanying sensations in the body from the tip of your head to the tip of your toes. Also let into your awareness the sounds in the room or outside, really being fully open to this moment, being able to let every voice that you're experiencing, from breath to body sensations to sounds, to all be part of a great divine symphony. The symphony of this moment, listening to the entire piece, hearing the entire orchestra. There are no distractions. Everything is part of this moment. And really settle into the reality that there is no place to get to. There is no state to achieve. All there is being open and present to this moment. You can even notice that which is noticing. To just rest in the very presence that you bring to this moment. And to notice that while you may decide moment by moment to be here and now, the very presence, the very noticing, the very watching of all of this just is and has always been. There's nothing to do to activate this presence. Our intention, our decision is just to rest in it, to rest in what already exists, what is here. And as we rest in this moment, open to all the voices of this experience here and now, can open every part of this experience being an expression of God's presence. Not to overlay some idea of God's presence onto our moment to moment experience, but instead to just be open to this moment of presence as being holy, as being something sacred and worthwhile. And that's just an orientation to this moment, a sense of humility, maybe a sense of awe and love. I'm going to be quiet for a period of time and just invite you to continue to stay present with what's here and now. The breath is a great grounding part of our moment to moment experience. So to always stay present with breath, to also be open to the entire symphony and the very presence that not only infuses it, but is also that watching and noticing that we bring to it. Dai 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 dai. Dai 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 dai. Dai 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 dai. Dai 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 dai. Dai 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 dai. Dai 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 dai. Dai 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 dai. Dai 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 dai. Dai 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 dai. Dai 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 dai. Dai 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 dai. Dai 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 dai. Dai dai dai.